We live in a world where the end user or the consumer is increasingly more concerned and even demanding as to where the product that he buys comes from and how it is made. And that is why we are seeing more and more different forms of certification logos on the products on our shelves. Now in forestry, one of the best certifications you can get is FSC, Forestry Stewardship Certification. Originally, it was started to try and save the natural and fast disappearing forests of the world. But today, it also applies to commercial forestry. Now, it may seem like a good thing to have, and definitely is in many ways. But also, over the years, this has evolved in, I almost want to say, a technically advanced monster that needs to be fed all the time. And that is why it is not necessarily a bad idea to take stock now and then. Just give a step back and see, are we really getting what we're paying for? Are the pros worth the cons?
For a commercial forestry company like Sappi, FSC is first and foremost about access to the global market. Having the official stamp of approval on your products instills confidence in buyers, but there is more.
FSC is a responsible certification system whose heart is ISO 14001 and 9001. It's an integrated system, so it's not only an economic thing, it's also a socially responsible thing and an environmentally responsible system that displays to international markets and consumers that a company is being responsible. And I think a company takes pride in that. So although I think it might be a primary reason for economically driving a company towards it, it's not the only reason.
But getting the certification and keeping it is not an easy matter. In the first instance, it costs a lot of money, not just in terms of the annual fees, but especially in terms of man-hours to make sure that everything is done according to their prescriptions, and to sometimes add management processes that would not otherwise be deemed essential for the forestry sector.
I think the costs to us now is around about 6 million that it costs Sappi. A little bit more, but that's the cost. If we dropped FSC tomorrow, we could save. However, you know, the benefits of that would not be 6 million. The benefits from being able to sell our product, from being able to stand up our company reputation, our license to operate, all these sort of things. I mean, those costs are far outweighed by the benefits. So it's very difficult to put an actual figure on it, but it does cost us money. But you know, if we do it properly and we go in with the right attitude towards FSC, I think it's a huge benefit to us.
FSC accreditation is based on 10 principles, looking at the industry from an environmental, a social, and a sustainability angle. A member company like Sappi is audited by independent experts covering all 10 principles in every 4-year cycle. This means that there's an audit covering 3 or 4 of the principles happening each year at one of the corporation's plantations. It also means that every plantation is inspected on a rotation basis at least once every 4 years. The auditors look for issues of non-compliance to all the FSC rules. Transgressions are put into one of 3 groups called observations, minors, and majors. If an observation is not resolved by the next audit or within a specified time, it is escalated to minor level. If a minor is not rectified in time, it becomes a major. And if a major is left unresolved, the corporation can be suspended and lose their accreditation status. This would be a huge loss to a company whose international market access is often determined by having the FSC stamp on their products. For the next few days, 2 accredited auditors will cover the Twello and Lothair plantations on the Eastern Highveld with a fine-tooth comb.
Twello and Lothair are renowned for being 2 of the best plantations in Sappi. In terms of the operations, in terms of the management outputs.
But taking into account the size of Sappi's land and the long lists of technicalities which could possibly cause suspension, it is understandable that these audits are tough times for the foresters on the ground.
An audit is like writing an exam. I mean, it's something that comes once in a long while. So you will feel a bit of nerves because you are not sure what the guys are going to identify.
After weeks of preparation, the big day finally arrives, and it kicks off with a friendly, though tense, opening meeting.
This is the Surveillance 2 audit, and obviously this is a sample, so we only look at certain areas, and we'll be looking, Manushka will be looking at principles 4 and 10, I'll be looking at principles 6 and 9. The objective of this audit is to see that your system complies with the principles and criteria of the Forest Stewardship Council. We're using the South African standard. As you know, we raise conditions in field. If there is something that we see, we're not here to catch you out, but if we see a gap within your system, we will raise a condition. We have minor conditions and major conditions. At the end of the day, we just record what we objectively see in the field.
For the next 3 days, Conrad will focus primarily on environmental issues and Manushka on the social principles. At the end of it, there will be a closing meeting where they will announce their findings. After the opening, they head off in their own directions.
Just saying that this needs to probably be repaired, David.
No.
Not?
Old bridge.
Yeah.
Before there, I mean, it should be closed off and removed, and it's probably within the road reserve.
Out of the ones I've seen so far, the 1/3 issue is not being adhered to, which is this. Remember, this should be 1/3. This should be 2/3. Your fringe needs to be uniform across.
By the end of day 2, the tension is tangible. Amongst other things, a document was missing in a store belonging to a contractor, and Manushka found what she considers to be an overloaded plug in one of the workers' houses. Sounds insignificant, but the threat of suspension is suddenly in the air.
If we see it becoming too stringent or too risky, just because of a single tree or a tiny little, somebody just turning into a fire break, obviously we don't want that to happen, but you've got thousands of vehicles out there, thousands of drivers. These sort of things happen, and does that really mean we're not sustainable?
Is that counter the spirit of FSC?
Yeah, exactly. So those are the kind of issues we've got to watch quite carefully, and that's probably why you see so much tension in the audit. Apart from our own pride, we really think we've got good plantations, and we think we've got good systems, and to have people criticizing is always difficult.
And the idea of suspension is almost unbearable.
There are others out there that can work, but it's a marketing issue, and we would have to go to the market and say, or the consumer of our goods, and it's not really the consumer, it's the middleman. It is important as we stand at the moment. There'd be a lot of work to do to change, or if we suddenly lost it, there'd be huge problems in the business.
And then the audit is over and it's time for the closing meeting.
I'd like to now go through the current conditions that we raised during this audit and then have a look at the positives that we saw.
It was noted at the chemical stores at Schlelo and Lotte that the material safety data sheet for chemicals was not present or had an outdated version.
At a tributary to the Matula River, next to compartment W86, there was evidence of heavy machinery that had been driven through the HCV area, causing damage to the vegetation.
The relief is obvious on all the faces, and suddenly the mood takes a turn for the positive.
I don't think any company would say that it hasn't positively impacted them by becoming FSC certified. It may come across as times that it's cumbersome and nitpicky, but I don't think anything raised has been debated negatively, and at the end of the day didn't benefit or the client, or he not understand why it was raised.
And if you look at the audit that we conducted over the last 2-3 days, the positives far outweigh the negatives. And for me, this was a very positive audit for the corporate. You look at the management of the high conservation value areas and the amount of work they put into it, and the link between the specialist reports and what's actually implemented on the ground by the forester. I mean, that's exceptional. So, for me, there wasn't any nitpicking at all.
Yes, we are happy that no majors was raised. We're not happy with the minors, because if a minor occurs, it means there's been a lapse in the process. And a minor as well for a follow-up. If a minor element occurs again, then we might have some trouble. You know, our area is so big. We've got many stakeholders that are on our plantations. There's a community. There's people that work for us. So there's individual decision makers, and it's almost impossible to have absolute control.
The thing about certification is that we already have one set of rules being enforced on two vastly different types of forestry, natural forests and plantations, which may be worth the effort and sacrifices if it promotes sustainability. But now the audits are becoming more and more technical, to the level where it threatens to lose sight of FSC's original reason for existence, saving the rainforests.
There's something wrong. It just doesn't weigh up the kind of work you've got to do to tick every box in the audit. And they only covered 4 of the 10 principles. So there's a huge lot of things that one should cover. And yet, is it making that much difference to management on the plantation? No, I don't think so. So how do I feel? Well, it's great that we finished the audit and there's no showstoppers. You know, we didn't get any majors or any suspensions, and most of those things, in my view, are quite trivial. We can fix them quite easily. So, yeah, a good audit, we carry on. Another year of FSC certified timber going into the mill gate and out the, factory floor. But what have we really achieved? Are we any closer to sustainable forest management? I don't know. I think that's the real question.
It creates opportunity to create the questioning mind. Am I adding value in what I'm doing today? Am I doing the best? Am I really striving for excellence? And I mean, excellence is one of our corporate values. So this is a test to that, and it drives behavior that we want.
And in the final analysis, even a very tired Dave agrees that it is probably worth it, for now.
I guess it's still worth it. I mean, I think there's a lot of work to be done to try and change FSC and try and get things right. But right now, it's still worth it. But we've got to watch quite closely where FSC is going.